Oh boy, do I have a great episode for you today. I can't wait for you to hear it. But before you listen, please take a second, help us out, subscribe to us on YouTube, MeisterCon Pod. That would be such a big help. So please subscribe. Now let's get to this interview. You're going to love it. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated. Pretty excited today. I've got one of my favorite actors, Adrian Paul, with me. So welcome, Adrian.
Hello. One of your favorite actors, huh? Well, maybe one of the older actors. I don't know these days.
So I think the first thing I remember seeing you in, and I can't take credit for it because it was a show that my mother watched when I was younger, but she watched the Colbys and wow. Saw you were either a ballet dancer or an instructor on there.
Yeah, I was a ballet dancer. I played the funny thing was I'm an Englishman playing a Russian on an American TV show. I was English Italian playing a Russian on an. So it was kind of, I was actually telling somebody the other day, it was one of the, in TV, a lot of the time you get the leads of the show get lines to be given, and most people can't really change a lot of lines, but certain leads can. And at the time we had Charlton Heston as one of the leads, and he looked at one of the lines. I was jumping out of I think it was about 4 stories, and I landed like a cat. And it was the most ridiculous thing. And the line was, "Oh, lucky you're a ballet dancer." I mean, exactly what does that mean? So he looked at the line and said, "I'm not saying that. I'm giving that to Tracy Scoggins. Here, you take it."
Well, and you've got a dancing background, right? So that was, I mean, at least as far as the role, not a stretch for you to be playing a dancer.
Yeah, I'd done that. I choreographed. I danced. I'd done a bunch of stuff. I studied jazz ballet at one point in my early career. So yeah, it was. I kind of got into ballet. Is very different. It's like doing Shakespeare for acting. It's the real basic elements of what dance is all about, and it's very technical. So, being an actor, you could kind of get away with some of it, and having done dance, I could get away with the rest of it. But some angles when you're doing jetés and like leaps across the floor, I'd let the double do that one.
Yeah. Well, that's probably smart. Protect yourself a little bit. So I jumped ahead just a little bit, Adrian. Tell me a little bit about what got you into the entertainment business. What made you want to become an actor?
It's a good question. Why did I do this? What on earth drove me to do this business? Funny. I when I was a kid, I was in a HMS Pinafore, which was a play. It was it was a kind of musical, and I loved being on stage. It was kind of real fun to do, and so I gone, oh, that's kind of cool. But at the time, coming from England, I was a we used to call it, although it's erroneous now, football, whereas it's actually soccer. And I've actually had that discussion with a lot of English people that actually soccer was actually born in England, and until the 1980s, it turned over to football. Although the English, a lot of them, including my brother, thinks that football is what it was always. And I said, anyway, so I used to play football in England, and so I wasn't really, I was like, oh yes, that thing, I don't know, So then I kind of got into modeling and dance when I was in my early 20s, and I got into kind of being on stage, and I loved it. I absolutely adored it, and I did kind of vaudevillian type of stuff where we did playback, and I really enjoyed that. And I thought, this is something I like, so I want to try and see if I can do more of it. And I started studying in England, and then I had a friend of mine who I'd worked with, I think he was a model actually, in Europe, and he said, listen, I live in Costa Mesa in California. Why don't you come out here? It's cool. We got the beach. We got this. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds pretty cool. You can stay on my couch. So I slept on his couch with his other 3 or 4 buddies who were in the house, and I stayed there for about a month, and I kind of liked it. And I thought, well, maybe I should try it here. So I would drive up to LA every few days. I got myself an agent as a model and started working, and then got I played a pimp in a stage play stage play in a how can I put this? It was a company called Sebastian International, which were a hair company, and they used to put on all these. I don't even know. They weren't even fashion shows. They were kind of like things that they showed people about the hair and all this. And the skit was me playing a pimp with all these model, girls in these funky outfits. And I played the pimp. And so we went out to dinner afterwards, and I kind of sat there and I said, the guy was Italian, and he kind of gives me this dirty look kind of thing. And I started talking to him in Italian. He's like, "Oh, you're Italian?" He said, "Yeah." And I started talking to him. He said, "I thought you're actually quite okay, because I thought you were a real dick, because that's what you kind of portrayed on." I said, "Yeah, but that's kind of acting. That's kind of that stuff." He said, "Oh, yeah." So we started talking some more, and they started saying that they were looking for a choreographer. And I said, "Well, I actually have a tape. You interested in having a look?" And they said, "Sure." So they liked it. I did it, and I started choreographing for them for about a year and a half, 2 years before I got my first role on the Colbys. First, major role on the Colbys. So I was doing that, traveling all over the US, choreographing like 20, 30 girls at a time, wow, doing all that stuff. So it was kind of you kind of fall into it, but sometimes if you don't, open your mouth, it doesn't happen for you. So that's kind of how I got into that. And that's what it brought me to the US and kept me in the US for a couple of years before I started acting.
Yeah. It's really, that's really great. And I thought that you had played, some soccer somewhere back in the day, or football, whichever you want to call it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which is becoming enormous in the United States now. And my son plays here, so all the different leagues and levels, and that's really kind of cool. I love seeing the sport grow.
It's been fun here in West Virginia watching it. When I was in high school, when I started high school, we didn't have a soccer team. Right. By the time I left high school, they had started soccer, but now it is so big in West Virginia. And, we've had a couple of colleges, Marshall University, the University of Charleston, that have won national championships in soccer. And I just, when I was younger, I never would have imagined that. Yeah. Because, nobody played it back then, at least in this area. So it's been neat watching it.
It's taken over. I don't want to taken over, but it has taken away a lot from the football and the baseball and the basketball worlds, and the funny thing was I actually had a guy, he was a therapist. I had a lot of injuries when I did Highlander and that, and this was back in the 90s, mid 90s. And he said to me, he used to be the therapist or the injury therapist for the LA Kings and all those people. And he said, I'm seeing, soccer starting to grow, because the thing is, there's not as many injuries in the way that it's done. I mean, yes, there are ligament injuries, but it's different than breaking your knee or your back or whatever. Plus, it costs a little less than football or takes. So people are putting, their kids into soccer. It's much more expensive in this country than it is in England. I mean, you pay $2,000 a semester here, where you pay like $300 in England for the same thing. So it's much more expensive, and I don't know, it's just changed a little bit now. But yeah, it's grown immensely.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch. I'm a baseball guy, so that's why I played baseball growing up. So I hate seeing some of that talent taken away. But it's been terrific. So we have to talk Highlander, but I wanted to mention that I loved you in Mask of the Red Death. I was such a Vincent Price fan, so when that remake or redoing of it came out, I had to see that one. So wanted to at least mention that one, because that was one I knew you had done. I think that was the late 80s.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was Roger Corman production. And Roger Corman used to do like 100 of these a year. He'd spend like $5 to do a production, on his studio, and just throw it together. I said, "Oh, we'll go put some paint on those walls and then we'll turn them around." Last week it was a cave. This week it's a castle, and so he was making, because the guy was smart. It was a very smart business decision for him to do, because he was making a lot of crap, but then there'd be one or two that would really make the money. I mean, I think Ninja Turtles was his, I think. So, so 1 out of 100 that makes 100 million pays for all the others plus, and he's still got a library that he can sell. So it was a brilliant decision. But yeah, it wasn't exactly how can I put it, high level, type of production.
Yeah, for sure. So, of course, we have to talk Highlander. When you got the role in the television show, were you a fan of the movie ahead of time, or was that like the first time you had heard about it?
No, I know the movie.
Yeah.
I know it very well. I mean, it's right up my alley. I'm a physical guy. I always have been. I've done dance, I did martial arts, and I liked period stuff. And so I'd seen Highlander, and I loved Highlander, and I'd been and I've told people this many times. I was in a casting office, probably about 6 months or 7 months, 8 months before the casting for the series came up, and Highlander 2 poster was on the wall, and I looked at it and I said, I really think I'm going to do something with that. That's just right up what I really want to do. And I looked at it. So when I walked into the audition for the first time, I turned around and I said, listen, you don't have to look at anybody else. You got your guy right here. And they looked at me like, you're so full of yourself, I was the first person they'd seen. And then, and so I guess it stuck with them, because then they read me, and then they had another 5 people that they tested on the Universal lot. And I was one of them. One actor was from England, another one from New York. There was a couple from LA, that type of thing. And it eventually got down to 2 of us. And it was bizarre because, usually on castings, I don't get this. I've never understood this with the casting process. They'll cast something, they'll have something in their pocket for months and months before, and then they cast at the very last minute. The very last thing they do is cast the project like days before it's supposed to go into production. And usually reply very quickly. And at this point, I did the test. It was between me and this other guy. We waited a week. We waited 2 weeks, nothing. And we went into the 3rd week, and my agent turned around to me and he said, by this point, it's gone, man. It's like, we would have heard by now. It's you or the other guy. This is what happens. I'm sorry, I'm going on vacation. And like literally 2 days later, his assistant calls me and goes, you got it. And I said, got what? Exactly. I had no clue. He said, Highlander. I said, what do you mean? He said, yeah, and you're leaving Monday. This was like on Thursday. And we're like, what? Like, really? Yeah. So literally I was packing my stuff up to go and move to Vancouver, telling my ex-fiance or ex-wife now, see you in a few months. And that's how that's kind of how it started.
I mean, any idea that it would end up lasting as long as it did? I mean, that series went on for a while, and then it started tying back in with the movies. Yeah,
I mean, I always thought it had legs or had the ability to be something, but really that was going to be on a couple of different factors. One I thought was whether or not the audiences would accept it as a series, as well as what the production or the actors would do in it. So, and I think there's always, and sometimes it's timing. I did a series which was Dark Shadows, which, we had, I can't remember how many episodes we did. I did a bunch of them, but it was a cool series, but it was right in the middle of the Iraq War. And so everybody's watching that and not watching TV. And so it's again, you just can't tell a lot of the time what the public's really going to want. But I always thought it had some legs, even though in the first season, they're like, we're going to cancel it. So, I'm like, okay, well, that'd be good. Yeah. But it didn't get great ratings at the beginning. The first review I got was, yeah, this is kind of cliche, and Adrian Paul's playing it totally cliche, and I'm and I'm like, oh God, I was used to some reviews, but not the ones like that were kind of really digging. And I'm like, oh God, this sucks. And so I'm always of the belief like you get stuck. It's your job to get yourself unstuck. So I worked even harder to make it not cliche and make it work. So but it was really the advent of David Abramowitz, who came in about the 13th episode of the first season, who really started turning the stories around rather than making them about the bad guy of the week. And that's where it really sort of started resounding with people.
Well, and that time period was pretty good because it was just starting, where syndicated shows were becoming popular, especially the fantasy sci-fi type of show.
Yeah.
And it was right in the middle of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of hit that niche, for us, especially us that are kind of nerdy and like that sort of thing. Wasn't a ton of that type of stuff on network TV. So the syndicated route, was really a way for us to kind of enjoy that type of thing.
Yeah, and look at it now. It's totally
Right.
different. I mean, it's like, it's not. I mean, Highlander was known as one of the most violent shows on TV. I'm like, really? Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, what's on there now? It's just so. Yeah, I mean, and there was Xena, there was Hercules, there was Lorenzo Lamas's series. From the name of it now, and there was Highlander. All these series.
Lorenzo Lamas. I can't remember the name of that series, but yeah, that was a pretty good series too.
Yeah, so there was a bunch of them that came out around about that time, and the syndicated market was doing well, which crashed in about the early 2000s. Around in 2001. The syndicated market crashed, much like the markets have crashed for films, independent producers in the past 5 years. A lot of like the Netflix and the Hulus and the Amazons, they've taken over that market. So now they're the ones that do it. You can't really sell, especially now, you can't really sell a film for as much as you could sell it for before. And so,
right.
It's a different market again.
I know, it's so interesting, I think, how quickly that stuff changes. I mean, it's, television and films have changed so much just in our lifetime.
Yeah. I think the content has gotten better, actually. The writing's gotten better. The actors have gotten better, because before, when I was back in the 80s and 90s, it was like, oh, no, you don't do TV. Don't do TV if you want to be a film actor. No. Now forget it. Like, everybody and their mother are doing it.
Yeah, they bounce back and forth. It's not that big a deal. So it's hard to believe, but it's been 30 years since the television show came out for Highlander. I mean,
God, you're dating me now, brother.
Us both. It's probably time for it to come back, right?
Well, I mean, they've been trying to get this film out, and if the film goes, they'll bring a series out as well. But it's I don't know what they'll do. I have no idea whether it'll ever get made. I've been trying to do this for like 8 to 10 years. I've been trying to bring the film out. Yeah, it's been a while. So again, different factors. I remember doing a show called The Owl, which was a pilot, and it was a CBS pilot, and it was literally the night before that it was going to go to series. And then somebody came in and change of management or whatever went, no, we're not doing that. So all of a sudden it didn't go. And so again, you just don't know what goes on. And people say, why don't you do this? Why don't you? Well, I don't really have the power to do that. It's the people that own the IP and the production companies and the studios that have the say. And it could be something as simple as, this person here that owns this project doesn't like that person over there, so they're not going to let them get this project, and therefore they'll keep it. I mean, it's literally like that. And I'm not joking. So, that
has to be disappointing, though. I mean, when you're expecting something to come out and then it gets axed at the last minute, that has to be disappointing.
Oh yeah, I've been through that a few times.
So, did you learn sword fighting on Highlander, or were you already interested in that before you got the part?
I actually started about a year before I got the part, and very loosely, and I was actually playing with a katana just to sort of work with it and play with it. It was literally a year, because I was studying some taekwondo and some unarmed techniques and stuff, really loosely, like a day a week with a private trainer and doing some stuff and all that. And but really Highlander was the thing that really got me into it, because you're doing it all the time. And it was we again, you're talking about changes in the world, because we were at the time when all the Hollywood movies were coming, the Hong Kong movies were coming in, and all the Jackie Chans and all this, and you're watching these guys actually do the fights. So it was a time when the actors now were like, well, I've got to do it. You had the Seagals, you had the Van Dams, so you've got to look like you know what you're doing. And that's what I did. I studied for the next 5 years. I was studying like off camera as well as on camera, nonstop, so that I would look like I knew what I was doing. And eventually, I guess you pick up a lot of knowledge.
I mean, that's kind of a neat skill to gain just as a side thing.
Yeah, I mean, the movie industry, I mean, there are the minuses and there are the pluses. It's like anything. And, the movie industry gives you the ability to travel, see some amazing countries, meet different people, do amazing things that you would never naturally do. So, yeah, it does allow you to do a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. So I wanted to bring up, I've been listening to Peace Fund Radio. Which really, what a great concept, but talk about that a little bit, because I know it started as something and then it kind of evolved to where you added in the radio show, but talk about that a little bit.
Well, the Peace Fund, Peace stands for Protect, Educate, Aid Children Every Day. And we started back in 1997. Wow. It was actually started off the auspices of Athletes and Entertainers for Kids, and Shaq O'Neal was the figurehead for that. And I met him one time. I mean, the guy's enormous. I mean, his arm was like resting on my shoulder like this. He's like, "Hello, Adrian, how you doing? You're right. My mom loves you." And I'm like, "Oh, really? That's nice." How you doing, Shaq? You up there? Okay. We started doing a lot of stuff in schools, etc., rotating classes for kids and bringing celebrities to sort of empower them, if you like. And then and then I got so busy with that, and I just couldn't hold it off. So we kind of dropped it for about a year, and then the tsunami of 2002 came around, and my brother's family was involved in it in Thailand, and I wanted to do something. So we raised a considerable amount of money to actually give to orphans and the people that were affected by the tsunami, the kids that were affected. So we started realizing that we could partner with different organizations and bring different types of things that they weren't able to do, whether it was logistics, whether it was funding, sometimes awareness, different things. And so we did that for several years, and we successfully pulled off things like building a playground for a school in Romania, or a dentist area, or taking kids from Chernobyl to do a trip in the UK. I mean, there was different variety of things. Teachers across borders in Cambodia from Australia, we put them into there to help the educational system. So we did all of this. And then in about 2011, 2012, I went on a radio show with Combat Radio, which was run by Ethan Dettenmeyer. And he said to me, "You should do your own show. Why don't you do your own podcast?" And I'm like, "What? Well, what's podcast? What a pod? And he's like, "Yeah, you do this, and I don't know." So we started it, him and I, and we've now done over 600 and something hours of free podcast, based on all different types of celebrities coming in and talking about the projects they're in, the charities that are out there doing different things. Because what I've realized, it's like Facebook. Facebook puts everybody together and they can share ideas. And so Peace Fund Radio kind of did that. You'd realize that there's the same different organizations around the country are doing the same thing, right? They're doing autism in Carolinas as well as in New York. So why don't you guys share? So, or if you had a problem, and the main thing I found over the years is that a lot of people in one area will have an issue, and it's only then that they realize there's a charity around the corner, a food bank around the corner, that they can actually help. Other than that, they don't notice. It's like you driving to work every day and you keep passing this amazing building and you've never seen it before in your life, but it's right there. So that's the same thing with charity. So a lot of the time so we've dealt with a lot of different things over that time, and we're still running it. And right now we're trying to get into the Ukraine thing at the moment to try and talk about that, which is a very it's heartbreaking to see, because I look at the news a lot. But one of my businesses is actually in Hungary, which is right next door. So we're trying to partner with people to try and get some help for the refugees coming out of Ukraine, especially a lot of kids who have no schools, they have no teachers, they have so we're trying to look at that at the moment. So it's been a great time to do this, when we've done I've done 10 years of that podcast now. It's kind of, so
it's I've been doing this podcast for maybe 3.5 years now. I'm not sure about 10 years. That's a lot of podcasts.
It's a long time. It's a lot of talking.
A lot of talking.
Yeah, I mean, before we used to have people, because we used to have on the Universal lot. We used to be on the Universal lot for a while, and we'd have guests coming in. But then, with the pandemic, just prior to the pandemic, a lot of celebrities in that wouldn't have time. So I'd be interviewing them in cons, etc. But after the pandemic, you're sitting on Zoom in an undisclosed location,
Right.
trying to talk to people, which kinds of works pretty good, which goes on to the other podcast I have, which is called The Hollywood Experience, which I've been doing I've got about 50 episodes of that now wrapped, which is all talking to all different martial artists, showrunners, actors, all about action, how they actually, what are the accidents that happen? What are the things that happen to them? Is it different now than it was then? I've had Bill Shatner on there. I've had Kelly Hu on there. I've had a few people I know that come on. Yeah. So it's kind of fun to do. So you kind of get to know what the podcast world is all about after a little bit,
Yeah, that's pretty great. Yeah, we've had Kelly on the program, and she's terrific.
She's a sweetheart. I've known her for many years.
Yeah, she's pretty great. Well, yeah, that's a lot. You're much more experienced at this gig than I am.
I don't know about that. I just talk. It's just.
I always say my son handles the hard stuff because he does the editing and the promotion, and he does all the hard stuff. I just show up and talk. So I got it easy.
Yeah, you need the technical side of it. Yeah, we have our editor as well. You need the technical aspect of it, how to put it together. So it's my format's a little similar to yours, where you have a guest coming in, and I think then you edit around that to put your other stuff into it. Yeah.
When we started, we had no clue what we were doing, and we weren't using Zoom back then, so we were just holding a cell phone up to a microphone. That's how we started. So we've come a long way.
Yeah, you have.
So I know we got to wrap up, but real quick, any good. I know you did, and I remember going to this movie as a date night at the theater, Love Potion number 9. Any good young Sandra Bullock stories?
Oh, gosh, Sandra. I mean, she was a sweetheart. That was one of the first things she did, actually. Yeah. I know, actually, the story I can tell you, there was Tate Donovan was in that movie as well, and actors, what actors tend to do, they go to the set, they do their work, and then they go out to the hotel, and they're like, well, what should we do tonight? Well, I'll go to dinner, right? So we were going to go out to dinner, and Sandra kind of, she met me in the hallway, I think, or something, and we were going to Tate's room, and I've knocked on the door, and then Sandra jumps on my back and knocks me into the door and breaks my necklace. It was like a crystal necklace, and I'm like, oh, she says, no, don't worry, I'll get you another one. Don't worry, I haven't had it from her since. I think I need to get interest on that necklace, especially now. No, but she was. Yeah,
show up and say, I'm still waiting on my necklace.
Yeah, I mean, she was really. I've always liked Sandra as a person. I haven't met her in years, so I can't say what she's like now. But she was always a sweetheart, and I met her after that. Before she did, is it Millennium Man with Stallone? Is it Millennium Man? I can't remember the one where it was in the future and.
Demolition Man.
Demolition Man. That's it. Thank you, Millennium Man. Demolition Man. And we were at a party, and she says, "Yeah, Adrian, I think I've got this really cool thing that's going to be coming up. I think it's going to change things." I said, "Oh, that's awesome." And I think I was going off to do Highlander or something. I had just gotten it or something. So we were kind of doing our separate things at that time. Yeah. So it was fun. It was great to see. And then I haven't seen her. I don't think I've seen her since, actually, in about 15 years, 20 years.
Well, maybe if this Highlander thing works out.
Well, yeah, you never know. Yeah.
You never know. You never know.
I know.
Well, Adrian, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking a little bit of time. Couple quick things before you go. Anything that you're working on, if you have time, that we can keep an eye out for?
Well, I do have another company that I've been working with now, which is called the Sword Experience.
Yeah.
Which, I do tours, I do retreats, I do academy events. Where basically we take people, depending on what the event is, we take people to. I'm working on our European tour at the moment, to castles, to different venues, and teach them a sword fight, film them, photograph them, and give them the memory of them being like an action star for a day. And so it's been kind of fun because the one I've got this new one now that I'm working on, as I said, a tour where I'm going to try and get hotels that are either castles to spend a night in the castle, train that day, and then go and visit other castles and other venues and do that actual choreography at 2 or 3 different locations. So,
That's amazing.
So now I put stories. I just literally came back from Cortland, New York. I do conventions as well, where I'll do something for the con. And we did one at the con, and I based it on Westworld. Have you seen the series Westworld?
Of course, yeah.
So the whole concept is that, these robots, these robot humans are now kind of sort of take over this thing. And so I've got them in I don't know if you ever saw, they had that part where they were all in the dummies and they were all in one position like this. So I've got them all in that position, and they break free and then they come in and they attack the humans and so I do all of these different ones. I've done one for Sweet Tooth. I've done one on my own different story that ran 3 or 4 different event areas. So it's been kind of fun because, now we've got whole plans. We've got membership platforms. We've got teaching platforms for swords. Yeah. So it's kind of grown quite a lot. So that's kind of what's on. I do quite often now. And then I just came off of SWAT, the TV series SWAT. I just did that 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. So that's coming out.
Yeah.
A week and a half.
SWAT.
So
SWAT is a really good show. So I'm excited. That the original series, when it was out back in the 70s, was one of my favorite shows to watch. Love that series. So when they remade it and came out with the movie and show, that's been terrific. So I'm very excited that you were on there.
They're very cool. They're very cool on there too. I mean, pandemic wise, it's changed things for productions, because before you're shooting 13, 14 hours a day. They're not allowed to do that now. They shoot 10. So they had to put all that same amount of work into that space. So there's no lunch breaks now. You're just eating and running during the day. So some people don't really get to eat very much. But it's the actors on it are nice. On some shows you can be on, like the lead actors can be a little off-putting, and they don't really care about the guest stars coming in, but they do. And so it's always really nice to sort of see that when you go onto different shows.
Yeah, that's so great. I love the sword experience. How much better a retreat is that than the typical business retreats that you get stuck going on? That sounds so much better. Yeah,
we came back from Mexico. We were in Mexico this last December, 4 or 5 days.
Wow.
So you went to visit different cenotes, which are underground swimming pools, and you had lunch and fighting on the beach, and then you went to visit old Mayan ruins. So, we kind of incorporate a lot of this stuff into our different retreats. We've got one coming up actually in Maryland at the end of April, which is kind of fun. That's going to be a whole bunch of different seminars with different instructors about different types of things. So we got different stuff all the time. That's what we're trying to do, just different stuff to have fun and learn a few things at the same time.
Yeah, I love that. So last thing, Adrian, before you go. So if our listeners are interested in the sword experience, or they want to listen to Peace Fund Radio, where do they go to find those?
Real simple. swordxp.com. That's really kind of sword experience, swordxp.com. You can find out everything there. Peace Fund Radio, just type it in. Peace Fund Radio, it comes up at number 1. And the Hollywood podcast is the same thing. Is you type in Hollywood podcast and it'll come up Adrian Paul, and that will come up too. So they're pretty simple to go find. Most of our podcasts are on all platforms, from Apple Music to Spotify and all those other lovely things.
That's terrific. Well, thank you so much, Adrian. This has been a highlight for me. Just a blast.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I hope you have a fabulous day, and I'm going to go and pick up my son who's playing soccer.
All right, hold on one second. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. It's not every day that you get to talk with a Highlander. That was pretty amazing, and such a talented, busy guy. The work he's doing with the Peace Fund is unbelievable. And he's been doing it now for a decade or longer. Unbelievable work that he's doing, really showing what you can accomplish if you are in a public eye and you have some of that celebrity status, the good that you can do. It's just amazing, the work that he's doing. And I love the sword experience. That, oh my gosh, I got to check that out. It sounds like a way that I would probably end up getting beat up, but how amazing would that be? So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that. And we didn't even talk about, the fact that he made an appearance on Strike Back, that he played a villain on Arrow that was just terrific. I used to love him on the show Tracker. And he's had a history with War of the Worlds. He played a character on the show. I think that was an 80s show or maybe early 90s. But then he's also voiced characters on cartoon adaptions, cartoon movies, animated movies for War of the Worlds. So pretty excited. How they didn't reach out to him with the epic show, the new War of the Worlds, and get him to make a guest appearance. I don't know. That's a miss. He would have been terrific. Thank you guys so much for tuning in again this week. Definitely don't take that for granted. We're trying to just keep bringing quality, wonderful, fun guests. So I hope that you feel like we're accomplishing that. If you haven't done so yet, part of what helps us is building up those subscription numbers. We need the help on our video side. So our YouTube page, MeisterCon Pod. If you're watching this podcast right now, please subscribe. That, it's free. It gives you access to all of our content. It really would help us out and help us to keep bringing these terrific guests. You can find all 360-ish episodes, audio and video, on our website, meistercon.com. There's a terrific, fun, geeky blog that Brett writes. He's such a good writer. You'll love that. If we're doing anything in studio, if we're going on location, if we're covering a convention, all that will be on the website, meistercon.com. Thank you guys so much. Until next time. Bye, everybody.